We are live here, THP Showcase Week. I'm hanging out with JB today. He's mic'd up. Mike is hot.
How's everybody doing today?
We're here in the tech studio as we have been all week. And this is stream one of actually three today. We'll be joined at some point by Dave Neville from Callaway to talk about Apex irons. We'll have another stream this afternoon. Luke Williams talking all about putters. Ideally, all about blade putters, which are, my fave. Josh, you think you'll be happy about that?
Luke's kind of a mallet type of guy.
Little malady, yeah. And then we have drinks with Jason Finley tonight. If you've seen Jason around the forum, Darth Finley, you know to mark your calendars because you definitely do not want to miss that.
I feel like Jason Finley would be the ultimate commentator in a contest.
Okay.
I think we should do one at some point tonight. Maybe closest to the pin, maybe play a sim round, do something. And we are joined right now by D-Nevs.
Yo,
there he is.
What's up, Canadan?
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. Happy New Year.
You as well. It is an exciting time right now for you over at Callaway. I hope we're not taking up too much of your day. I bet it's a little crazy.
Yes, we've gone from packing a bunch of launches and announcements last week to getting ready for our fitting days and pre-sales starting next Tuesday. So it is definitely a little crazy, but there's nothing I would rather be doing than hanging out with a bunch of my THP buddies.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a bit of time today scheduled to talk about Apex irons, and I want you to know that Josh is off cam, but he is mic'd up.
Okay.
How's it going, Dave?
What's up, brother? How we doing?
Not too bad. We have Canadan standing in the bay, as you see. He's holding Apex irons. People have been talking about them, asking questions about them. We thought there was no better way than to have him hit balls and you answer their questions.
That sounds great. That sounds good.
Can I kick it off for you with an early question?
Sure.
Okay. So my activity here in the tech studio over the last couple months has shown a little bit of an affinity for a different iron you guys made recently, the X-Forge CB.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty excited about that until I found out you guys were actually making another iron that would emotionally compromise me in an attempt to select something.
Dave, before you answer, if you saw the confliction, he's got the devil and the angel on each shoulder all week long between these two irons, and it's driving him crazy.
Brutal.
I love the term emotionally compromised. I think that's very fitting for you, Canadan.
So a little shot here. Is that how you felt the zoo crew were after I left that one year,
No, we were emotional, but we weren't compromised. We were just down in the dumps.
It's my understanding you came back with a vengeance.
The only man to bring victory to the THP side is in the studio right now. There he is.
Yeah, so what I want to do is I want to hit a bit with Apex Pro. We're going to do 6 irons today since I like a challenge. When I first saw the pictures of Apex Pro, you guys did an incredible job of hiding what's actually going on inside. Now, you're smarter than I am, I assume. So I'll have you break that down a bit, and maybe people can understand why I'm so excited about them.
Yeah, thanks for that question. And in fact, I have a break apart of the Apex Pro right here in front of me. And the goal was to have a player's performance iron that could be used by tour players, but also by low handicappers like Canadan, that we would pack a ton of technology into these, but it would still be a player's shape with a thin top line, not a lot of offset, not something that's going to have a super wide sole to it. So it all starts with bringing the AI flash face cup to the forged iron for the first time. So I'm holding this up here. We've got the plastic on it, obviously, but what you're seeing is a lot of different ripples and unique bumps. So it's not just all about ball speed, and these irons do have a ton of ball speed, but also about the spin rate and the consistency across the face. And then holding up the 1025 body here. So you do hear from a lot of companies about the fact that their clubs are forged, but they might be only the face forged. It's actually more of a challenge to forge the body. So we've got a 100% forged body here, 1025 carbon steel. So that's going to feel extremely soft. And then this huge barbell. So there's up to 90 grams of tungsten in these.
90
grams.
That's like a small baby.
Yeah.
What do you know about babies?
You can do dumbbell curls or hammer curls with these JB.
Wow.
So, some other companies, they might have a lot of tungsten in kind of the bigger shaped, oversized heads, but to put that into a player's performance iron is really, really incredible.
Oh,
so
Jesus.
It's more than 5 times what we've had in previous irons there. And then we have the urethane microspheres, which I'm holding up to the camera. So those are actually injected around the tungsten, and that's going to help with the sound and feel, because this is an all new forged hollow body construction. So this thing is really different from any Apex Pro that we've ever had before. So typically we've used the cavity back. So now we have that forged hollow body construction that gives us some stiffness in the back, but also gives us more room for the tungsten that's in these irons as well. So
Dave, we got a question about your break apart and the different bumps and grooves throughout the face. What exactly is that doing other than looking very different from everything else in the industry?
So what we're using artificial intelligence, and that allows us to do 2 things that's really, really important. It allows us to put in more constraints than we've been able to do in the past. With an iron, it might be what they call like a VFT, or a variable face thickness type of
Based on that shot, it's working.
That was nice.
200-yard 6-irons?
200-yard 6-iron. I like that. That's a good start. He's just warming up.
The first one, definitely.
You're able to put more constraints into the system in terms of what you're looking for launch angle, for spin rate, for descent angle, for all of that. And then you're able to do this rapid prototyping and get the supercomputer, the AI, basically to come back with so many different variations and spit out and say, this is the best one that's going to work. And, one thing to note, and I'll grab the box here in a second, but this is, people think, oh, they're using an AI face. It's the same face as Maverick. No, it's completely different. And not just is it different for the Apex Pro, it's different for each of the lofts in the Apex Pro. So the 4-iron's different from the 5, from the 6, from the 7.
He just answered the next question.
and they're all different because they all have different jobs to do.
So when you were going through an iron like this, and you have the Apex name, and it needs to meet that demand, and Dan's showing that off to the camera right now. It's a small picture though, Dan.
I'll go.
It's very different from the other Apex irons. How did you, every other year in Apex Pro and Apex had shared a similar look. How were you able to completely go different and still create that Apex name and messaging?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're always trying to, I would say, almost reinvent the category. We don't want to just go with just another Apex and another Apex Pro. So last time around, we brought Face Cup to the Apex Pro for the first time, and that was huge. So that gave players who were low handicappers more distance, particularly the 3 to the 7s where the Face Cup was. So we have that this time around, but then we started looking at different constructions and saying, if we use this hollow body construction, we can get a lot more tungsten, which is going to give us the launch angle and forgiveness that we want, but keep it into a player shape. So we wanted something that's still screams Apex. It's still pure and looks amazing, but definitely looks very different from what we've done in previous generations. And it looks different from the other 2 irons in the set, the Apex 21 and the Apex DCB. But I do think the Apex Pro has the ability to really outsell our previous versions of the Apex Pro by quite a bit.
We're getting rapid fire questions. The first one is, what shaft is in that?
Yeah, I'll answer that here, and then you can explain maybe why it works well for you guys over there at Callaway. Right now we have the Elevate 115 in stiff flex.
Yeah.
Can you go into how you chose the shafts for this lineup, Dave?
Yeah, so the Elevate we first had in the last generation in the 19 versions, and I think what was good about the Elevate was it really helped give a little bit of a launch angle and a little bit of spin. So when you have really thin irons, and I mean, I'll hold this up to the camera, but I think you guys can see how thin that face is. And using the face cup type of technology, it tends to launch the ball higher, but with less spin and more ball speed. And for some players, that can get the spin rates a little bit too low. So one of the things that we had talked to True Temper about when they were coming out with the Elevate series is how do we get a little bit more spin rate? How do we get that launch angle? Because we already have a ton of ball speed in these irons. So this time around, they have a new version of the Elevate, which I'll hold up here, the Elevate ETS. So it's enhanced tip stability. So it's really going to help. It's got some stiffness down in the lower section, but it does give you a little bit more spin than, say, your typical 115 gram shaft. The other thing that they have in there is this VSS system, this vibration dampening system. It's kind of like the new version of Sensacore. And we've had really good feedback on that it really helps the feel. So we already have the urethane microspheres in there along with the forged body. But anytime you have a high-end forged iron, it's going to be all about the feel. And so it's interesting to help the feel with the shaft as well as the head. So I think that's a cool option. In the Apex 21, we've got the Elevate 95. So it's very similar, but it's a lighter weight version. And then in the DCB, we've got the Elevate 85. So got Elevate across the board, a really premium high-end shaft. But if you're going out there, if you're getting fit, or if you're ordering from Callaway, there's a tons of no upcharge shaft options. So if you want to get one of the KBS, those are available as well. If you want to get Dynamic Gold, those are going to be available. So I think we have something like 15 different no upcharge shafts that are going to be.
Speaking of shafts, we just got a question from Mike Howrish. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Can the MMT shafts be ordered in 105 and stiff, or is that only available in X? Our guys are going to overthink the shafts, Dave. That's what we do for a living.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, from the stock standpoint, with the MMT, which is a very stout version of a graphite iron shaft, and that's why we put it in the Pro, and it's done extremely well with fitters like Club Champion, True Spec, those type of guys. They love the MMT shaft. Obviously, we brought it to the Epic line in the woods also, but we have it in 3 different weights here. So 85, 95, and 105, and 105 being in the X Flex. One thing to know is we can, if the company makes it, if Mitsubishi makes it, we can get it for you. We can get it for you. I think there's a little bit of a misconception out there of like, I saw it on the shaft company website, but it's not in the configurator for Callaway. Don't worry about that. You can call us. You can call into our number, and
I like that.
Yeah, that's great.
We'll get that shaft for you. Now, it might take a week, couple weeks. A lot of times because these guys are so close. Mitsubishi is right down the road. We can get stuff shipped out really quick.
If you're watching, hi Mark.
Is great about that as well, about getting any kind of exotic shafts out there, and we can get them for you one off. But in terms of the stock configuration, the 105 is going to be in the X, because typically if you're going, and Radaman had this out, early question out on Twitter, but if you're going to a graphite shaft, you want it to be lighter, so that's what I'm throwing out to you. I can't tell who's on, and who's not on. But if you're on there, Radaman, the point of the graphite is to go lighter. So if you're at 130 gram, Modus X in your steel, you want to be at 105 or 110 in graphite. It's still going to be very stout, but it's going to give you a little bit more feel. It's going to be a little bit lighter. You should be able to swing it a little faster. I think he was looking for something that was like 130 gram in graphite. I'm like, well, what's the point? Then just do it, use steel.
Right. Dan has a question here following up on that.
Yeah, so I'm sure people are at home watching the data a little bit. I think I peaked at 137 with the 6 iron.
I mean, it was 136.8, but
who's counting? Yeah.
I'm not. I know Dave isn't. So
tell
me a little bit about how Apex Pro can produce that kind of ball speed. And what's most fascinating to me, Dave, is you've taken a concept and made it into a profile that's really suitable for that lower handicap guy. How important is that for you guys to not only produce that kind of ball speed, but maintain it across the face?
Yeah, so I mean, this player, which is typically going to be your low handicap player, I'm sure we'll have some tour players in this one as well, whether that's Champions Tour or LPGA, PGA Tour. We'll see, but we wanted to have something that we could sell also that would give distance to that low handicap golfer. So you've got the AI design flash face cup, and that's huge. But also centering getting the center of gravity exactly where we want it is really big too. And so when you get back into that, 90 grams of tungsten, that's going to be really, really important also. So what we've seen in the testing is a 1.25 degrees higher launch versus the Apex Pro 19 with 5 yards longer low on the face, about 3 yards longer across the face. So that's huge because the Apex Pro, obviously, that was the first one that we brought the face cup in, and those were not short by any means. So these are going to be longer. I'm not going to say, hey, it's 12 yards longer, but we've had individual guys who've
17.
tested
17, yeah.
17 yards, yeah. Like my man Tyler Sheen, who works for me out at the ECPC, and he was 12 yards longer with the Apex Pro versus the 19. So just
that's scary, Josh.
Scary.
Yeah, Tyler doesn't hit the ball very far, so that's the real thing. So we have 2 comments here. First, Dan is making a transition to the regular Apex.
Correct.
And I'm going to bring D-Nevs into the combo set part of it, but he has a first-time, long-time.
Okay, and then these are Elevate 95 for anyone who wants to know out there.
So we got a question from somebody named Johnny Rodriguez who says, first time, long time. Hey, D-Nevs. I've been working out a ton over the past several months and have seen crazy distance gains. On the sim, I'm noticing that the toe on my irons is nearly 5 degrees down with a stiff shaft. Do you think a triple X shaft might help?
I think that's perfect for you, J-Rod.
For those following and don't know J-Rod, he works at Callaway. He's crazy. He's been in a million THP events. He's a great guy.
And he's guaranteed 10 handicap no matter what he's going to shoot.
So as we spin into Dan hitting the Apex now, can you talk, because we've gotten at least 20 questions on combo sets.
Yes.
And I know that's a big deal for you guys.
Yeah, so I know we got people from all over the country, but if you do get to come out here and visit us in California, you've probably heard of In-N-Out Burger and their secret combo menu with the double animal style, protein style, all those different options. So
are you hungry, D-Nevs?
I could use a little In-N-Out right now, actually. We've got our own combo menu, not so secret combo menu, and I'm going to hold up my little PDF printout of this. So I'm just going to walk through what we have in our combo menu. The kind of traditional combo set, the one that people think of, is the Apex and Apex Pro. So with that one, what's cool about it is you're going to have the Apex from the 3 through 7, and then Apex Pro 8 and up. So you get the advantage of the face cup there, but then you also have the Apex Pro in the 8 and up. And in the Apex Pro, we have all different tooling there. So we're able to get the lofts exactly where we want them without having to bend anything. So when you bend it, you're changing the offset, you're changing the bounce as well. Also, you have the shafts unified there because in this tooling, they're both going to be parallel tip. So that's good in terms of the shafts as well. So that's kind of our traditional mix set. But I know there's people out there who want to play all 3 irons. So we'll have the
triple play,
the Apex DCB in your 4 and 5, the Apex in your 6 through 9, and then Apex Pro in the P and the A. So that's going to be a really, really cool option.
So I'm going to double down on that, what you just said. Mike G, Granddaddy
Big G,
member.
Mike South. Yeah, Mike South, Big G.
He would like to know, in that triple play, can you alter that setup at all to have more scoring irons in the pros?
Well, so here's the answer to that, and that's a great question. So you can buy any of the clubs individually, right?
Right.
You could, create really whatever kind of combo set that you want with the DCB.
Just take a bow.
And then, you could go Apex through the 8 and then Apex Pro up through there. the difference is the Apex mix set and the triple play have separate tooling there. So you're able, from a shaft standpoint, to get to have the shafts be the same in terms of the parallel shafts across the board. Now you could buy them individually, and then you could get the Apex Pro bent to your liking. We can do 2 degrees of bending on the loft and 3 degrees on the thigh. At the end of the day, though, we did a lot of research on these 4 combo sets that we have, and we feel like that's going to fit a lot of people. And so I would recommend that you kind of stick with what we have there in terms of getting the tooling right, the lofts being correct without changing the balance and the offset, and kind of go from there. But if you want to buy the clubs individually, of course you can do that.
Despite Dan hitting 140-mile-an-hour ball speed a second ago with a 6-iron with your Apex, a follow-up question on that would be, just going with the combo set change which shafts are available from parallel versus taper?
Yeah, so the Apex 21 and the Apex DCB, they come as parallel shafts just in general, and then the Apex Pro is a taper shaft. So as we go into these mix sets with the kind of traditional combo set, Apex Pro, and then triple play, those are going to be parallel. So that kind of gives you the option there, in terms of all the parallel shafts that we have available. Then when you get into the player one, which is Apex Pro and Apex MB, that is a taper tip across the board, because the MB and the Pro are both taper tips. So it kind of gives you the taper tip options there. And then, we can shim them also. So if you're wanting to get something that comes in parallel only and get it in a taper, that's okay. You can shim it. But if you're wanting to go the other way, so it's something parallel and you want to put it into a taper option, that doesn't really work. That you would have to shave.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of work.
Yeah. But Dan, we try to.
For those asking, he is using a Chrome Soft golf ball.
Yeah,
correct?
I started with Chrome Soft. We're having a little bit of fun with the ball speed right now. I'm swinging harder than I normally do. I would bet, and we just broached 140 with a pretty decent swing.
Wow.
D-Nebs, what do you expect out of your 6?
That's like my driver. That's what I expect out of my driver.
Stop it.
Yeah.
As you're looking at Apex, we had talked years past about Apex being the sweet spot, Apex Pro fitting a smaller number of people. Obviously, you've thrown in DCB, and we'll get to those shortly. Where do you see it this time? Or is Apex Pro with this filthy looks over there? It's like the iron's looking at me like, I don't even want to say it's a family-friendly show.
Okay.
But like,
barely.
Yeah. Will that drive more people to that? DCB offering a more forgiving option? Are we going to see basically split across the whole 3 lines?
We still think the Apex 21, we're going to sell the most of that. We still think that's going to be our biggest seller, because that just fits the widest range of golfers. But what I will say on the Apex Pro is, I feel like we can expand that out a little bit. Typically with the previous Apex Pro, we're talking about, maybe up to like a 3 or 4 handicap playing that. Now, I think 6, 7, 8, kind of single digit handicappers have the potential to play the Pro, or the combo set, definitely comes into play there. And then when we look at the Apex 21, obviously the single digits players are gonna love that, but I could see it going up to, say, maybe 12, maybe up to 15 handicap with the Apex. And then DCB, which is one that we've never had before, that really brings a new set of golfers into the Apex family. So a lot of players who want to play a forged iron, but maybe they don't quite have the game for the Apex 21, and that's where the deep cavity back comes in. So I could see that being a 12 handicap to a 20 plus type of handicap if somebody's looking for a forged iron.
You talking about you right now, Josh?
And on that note, watch your mouth.
Okay.
You're switching up to the DCB, where he was roasting the ball with this earlier. And this is standard shaft. This is the Elevate.
Elevate 85.
Elevate 85.
That's one thing I want to say, D-Nebs. I love your choice of shafts, because we did a live stream on Sunday night. Was that on Instagram?
Instagram.
And I was bouncing through the set. It took me a couple swings for each to get to it, but I love that Elevate was very supportive all the way through. Even in stiff flex, it worked just fine for me.
Yeah.
I think it's a big telling thing for a neutral.
Going 30 grams either way is not always easy. Can you talk a little bit about Dart as well? Because we have a lot of people who are interested in that.
Yeah, so last generation we used the Project X Catalyst. That was a good shaft for us on the graphite side, but I don't know. There's something about Apex and recoil that has just always been an absolute home run, and people love the recoil shaft. So we knew that they had one that they were working on. I mean, we talked to them about the Dart at the 2019 PGA show. You know, that they were starting to work on this new dual action recoil technology. That was going to give it more stability, but still have that great feel of the recoil. And so that's when I kind of got in my mind of, we actually thought about it for Maverick, but we also had to make sure that they were able to, from a volume standpoint. And UST is actually, they have an all new IP machine. I think basically dedicated, just making shafts. But so we've brought the recoil back. We have it in multiple weight flexes. It's also in the Apex hybrids as well. And so I think that's going to work out really well in the Apex standard hybrid. And then we have the MMT in the Apex Pro hybrid. But there's something about recoil and Apex that seem to go well, extremely well together. So we're really excited to have recoil back.
So we've talked about combo sets. We've talked about, as Dan's roasting DCBs over the 200-yard green here.
I can't believe he's hitting an 85-gram shaft like that too. That's pretty
It's been pretty nuts. We need to know, Apex lineup, what is in your bag?
In fact, I've tested a few of these, but I just unwrapped a new set last night. With the Apex 21 but I put the Elevate 115 shafts in there because I did a fitting the previous Apex.
Of course you did.
Down at Club Champion, and they said they actually liked a little bit of the heavier weight shaft for me there, which I can't really justify or explain, but
they know what they're doing.
Was better, yeah, they do. But I'm also going to get some of the DCBs to try out in the 4, 5, and 6, and just see kind of how that works. I think people are expecting the DCB to be huge, or have this really thick top line, but
it does not.
It does not. It really blends well. It's not obese. It's not something that you would be,
It shocked Dan.
Yeah, and we really did that on purpose, because if the whole point of the DCB was to bring people into the Apex family who want to play a forged iron. So if you want to play a forged iron, you don't necessarily want your irons to look massively oversized. You want them to have that extra help, to have that deep cavity back, but to be extremely playable. And that's what we have with the DCB. So I'm thinking about my own little sweet spot combo set here, maybe with the 4, 5, and 6, and then go Apex up from there. But I'm also testing the Apex Pro, because like you said, I mean, I don't know.
You know what you just said? You just said if you weren't working at Callaway, you'd be a THPer.
Yeah, I've got a little internet golfer, and everybody knows that in me.
Dan, you have a question about a different set of irons.
Yeah, so I don't want to take away too much from Apex, but you have another iron that's been out for a little bit. We did some reviewing here in the tech studio, X-Forge CB, the super cool MIM tungsten on it. I came here this week with the intent of solidifying my iron choice for 2021.
And stealing those, basically.
Basically, yeah. I mean, you can't steal what you can't find, right? I don't really understand why, because Sunday night in the live stream, I was all over the pin with Apex Pro.
Yes.
And then we did, I don't remember what we were doing. Maybe I was just hitting. And it was like a laser beam with X-Forge CB. And that's so dense in the middle with that MIM tungsten that, and what surprised me about it the most is that club, when you hit it well, keeps up with anything for me. So is there something about that product? Is it like a secret sauce that you guys put in there? Something special?
It's on the secret menu from In-N-Out.
Yeah. Can you explain that to me, D-Nabs? Because it's killing me right now.
Dan taking over the live stream and making it his own personal iron shop.
Yeah, we're gonna do a personal fitting for Dan. No, it's a really good question because actually we've had that question a lot. What is the biggest difference between X-Forge CB and Apex Pro, and who are they for? And there's definitely some overlap there. But when we brought out X-Forge, I think you guys know the previous X-Forge was a single piece forged iron, didn't have a lot of tech, didn't have a lot of help in it. Obviously, we got some tour play. You know, we sold some of them, not a lot. We wanted to bring a lot more tech to the X-Forge. So we put a...
Dan is actually holding that up in the screen.
Yeah, we had the faceplate in there. You see the MIM tungsten, which is in the back, which we use for swing weighting. So we have those down, you know, in multiple different weight increments to get that swing weight really dialed in. But then there's also tungsten inside the head as well in the toe, and that's to get the CG centered. So those were a huge, huge upgrade from where we were with the previous X-Forged iron. So they've done extremely well for us. I would say they are definitely a little bit of a better player iron than the Apex Pro because they don't have the face cup. So in terms of players you see out on tour, you know, scratch handicappers plus handicappers, the X-Forge might be a little bit better for them. But if we've got a lot of better players who want a little bit more distance and they want that look of the hollow body, and that's where the Apex Pro comes in. So there's definitely overlap. I would expect on the PGA Tour, we'll get more X-Forged play than Apex Pro, but that may flip on the Champions Tour and the LPGA, depending on the kind of distance that they're looking for. But yeah, I mean, there is secret sauce.
I wouldn't be able to do a stream on Callaway irons and Apex in particular if I didn't ask you about the TCB. Because it's a European release. They didn't get X-Forged, which means, of course, I want them.
Yeah.
So can you talk to a little bit, will that be a special edition? Do you guys not know yet? Right now, it's just over there.
Yeah, so we had to make some decisions there, and the Apex TCB is the tour cavity back. You know, it's an interesting one, and of course, people want it because they can't have it. They can't have it, or it's out on tour. But in terms of playability, it's a great iron if your name is Xander Schauffele or John Rahm. But if that's not your name, or you don't play golf for a living, then you might want to look at some of our other offerings. So, you know, this one's going to have...
That was put very politely. Is that about
CB has a shorter blade length. You know, it's got a little bit more loft in it. It still has the tungsten for the swing weighting, but it's not going to have as much tech or as much help. So it's going to be harder to hit than even the X-Forge CB, much harder to hit than the Apex or Apex Pro. And, you know, we're debating on whether we want to do a limited edition here, but we also didn't want to confuse people. We're launching 3 irons, and we already feel like we're covering so many golfers with the new Apex line. We don't want to confuse them with a super niche product that you need to be a +5 handicap to play.
So I just got a really interesting question that you probably are better qualified than anybody to answer.
Okay.
Somebody says, I play 6-year-old irons from another brand. The lofts on the Apex are a little strong. Is this by design, and why? And I know you and I have had this conversation with a different set of irons you have, where if you didn't strengthen them, you might hit yourself in the hat with your own set. So can you kind of talk about why you strengthen your irons, and not all sets, but how it differs with spin profile and everything else?
Yeah, so we get this question, and it kind of gets down the whole loft jacking path, which I could go on for probably an hour on my soapbox, but I won't do that. But what has happened, even in the past 6 years, the construction of irons has really, really changed. So I was talking about the face cup earlier and how it tends to launch higher. So just by using the face cup, we get about 1.5 degrees more launch. And then when you get something like 90 grams of tungsten in our tungsten energy core, and you put that low and deep in the head, the ball launches straight up in the air. So if you don't strengthen the lofts, you will be getting clubs that launch, they balloon. They basically are launching a lot higher than you want, outside of the window of what you would expect for the 6 or 7 iron or 5 iron, depending on what your you're hitting. So when we're looking at constructing these irons and coming up with the loft, it's not just about the number that's there, but it's also about the spin rates, it's about the launch angle and the descent angle as well. And, I've talked to Doc Hawk many, many times about this, and he will just reiterate that the loft is just one number. It's just one part of the whole formula. And I would encourage people to go out and see how these clubs fly. So does a 7-iron fly like a 7-iron? Does a 6 fly like a 6? And what people are expecting to see in that kind of launch angle and launch window. So what we're seeing by strengthening the lofts, first of all, getting the launch angle a lot higher, but then strengthening the lofts, you're going to get more ball speed, and you're actually going to get more carry downrange. So your peak height is going to be further downrange, but you're still going to get that really good launch and a really good carry distance and land angle as well. I mean, Dan, you're hitting these right now on the Foresight. You're hitting the DCB and the Apex 21. Are you having any problems getting the ball into the air, or?
Not me. Well, you played with the DNFs. I'm a high ball hitter, so
yeah. We're gonna make a switch here. We're gonna bring Jeremy in, and he's gonna hit some drivers cold, by the way.
Oh, nice.
But we couldn't do this with you without talking Epic.
Yeah.
So my question to you before we dive into tech is, what Epic are you playing?
Right now, I'm playing the Epic Max, which I'm holding right here in 9-degree configuration. But being a club junkie myself, I'm going to test it versus the Epic Speed because I love the shape of the Epic Speed. That Cyclone.
It's so good.
The deep face. I've always liked the Callaway drivers with a deep face. It's just appealing to me. Sometimes I know that maybe the Max might be good in terms of the adjustability, but I'm going to try to get in the speed. One big difference with the Epic Speed is it does have a lot more MOI than the Maverick. And I played the Maverick standard for a number of months, but then I switched to the Max, and that helped me. But the Epic Speed is going to have 400 to 450 more MOI points than where we were with Maverick, but still have all of that speed of the Cyclone era. So it's going to be a dogfight, and I will let you know later who wins that.
So Jeremy's going to take some rips with the Speed right here. Now I'm going to tell everybody up front, this is not a shaft that fits Jeremy, but it is a shaft that'll fit the masses. These come standard with the IM10. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's one that Project X, True Temper, is really excited about. So they're working with a company called Hexel, which is out of Minnesota, and they've developed some new fibers. They call it Hexto fibers in there, which is going to really help the stability. So it is a smoke shaft, and I think people know kind of how the smoke plays, and it's going to play similar to that, but it's going to give you a little bit more stability using these IM10 fibers and the Hexto fibers. It's something they're really excited about, and we know that it's going to work really well with our head. It's going to come in a variety of weights. We'll have a 50, a 60, and a 70 gram for the fairway wood. So that's going to be kind of our main up the gut shaft. And then we do have the Cypher shaft, which is the all new Project X, kind of their lighter weight lineup. Have that in 40 and 50. And, we've been talking to them about whether they were going to come up with a lighter weight platform for a while now. And they've been working hard on it because they didn't want to give up the stability that people kind of know Project X for when they went lightweight. And that's what they're seeing with the Cypher. So that one I think is going to do really well. That is a really new shaft. And then the MMT, which Mitsubishi obviously has had in the irons and the hybrids for a while, and now they're bringing that over to the woods. That metal mesh technology came from their archery division that they have over there with all of and the arrows, and they brought that technology over, metal mesh. It gives them some more stability. That's going to be kind of our lower torque, really stable option. Going to have that in the 60, 70, and 80, kind of the main shaft for the Max LS, but you can get it in the other products as well.
So
I've got a thought here. We've had conversations on the THP forum, and I know you check that out maybe once or twice, at your own leisure, DNevs, but we constantly have a conversation about sound and drivers there. Jeremy just hit 2, shut the face down nicely on it. It's got a nice little crack to it. When you guys go into the concept of design, how important is acoustics for you?
It's very important. It's very important. In fact, we started with Maverick and also with Epic using AI in the design of the acoustics. So we're looking for the pitch, the duration, and the volume as well, and looking at all three of those. And we know, going back to the Epic Flash, there was a lot of people that didn't like the sound of Epic Flash, or they just felt like it wasn't really the Callaway sound. There was actually, a decent number of people who really liked it. They were like, wow, that's a loud crack, and certain other companies tend to have that really loud, kind of high-pitched sound, but that's not the kind of your typical Callaway sound. So we had incredible feedback on the Maverick, on the new sound, and I think we've continued that with the Epic. I'm going to show the inside of the Max LS head and try to put that up to the camera where if I can get the lighting right, you can see the rib that's in here, that's right in there. So we use AI to design the location, the shape of that rib. So traditionally, the ribs have been really kind of triangular in types of their shape. Now we have ones that are curved. They're in different locations. They're at different angles, and that's all about working on getting the sound right of the driver. So that is really important. I would say that the drivers all sound a little bit different, and so but I think they all have that kind of true Callaway sound.
So one of the questions we just got is about the Max LS, and it's not meant to be a replacement for the Sub-Zero, correct?
That is correct.
What is that targeted for from a consumer perspective?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting one. We've had a lot of questions of why did you go away from the Sub-Zero, and Sub-Zero has been that platform a fan favorite for multiple generations now. But one thing we learned from our tour players, particularly around the Sub-Zero, is it was really too low spin for a lot of our tour players. I know out there on the THP forums, there's a lot of guys that say they're getting 1,700 spin with 17 launch, with ball speeds around 200 miles an hour.
That was pretty low right there.
In reality, on tour players are playing 2,400 to 2,600 RPM of spin. And so the Sub-Zero was actually too low spin for a lot of those players. And that's when you started to see like those triple diamond models. And the real reason for those was to get a little bit more spin back. So I remember sitting in one meeting with our CEO, Chip Brewer, and he said, why don't we make a tour driver that the tour players actually play? So we're like, oh, that's an interesting thought. So with the Max LS, I would say the LS stands for lower spin, but not necessarily for ultra low spin. It's still going to be for the better player. It's still going to be lower spin than the Epic Max. But what you have now is a ton of forgiveness. So this thing has around 8,500 MOI. You've got a neutral start line, and then you have the adjustability to really tune that last third of the flight. You still have the jailbreak speed frame in there, which is going to give you tons and tons of speed. You've got the AI face in there as well. But now you have a really forgiving platform that's going to be low spin, but it's not going to be like if you hit it out on the toe, it drops to 1,600, 1,700 type of spin.
As Jeremy's taking cuts here, he's seeing pretty low spin across the board with this. Which one are you hitting now, Jeremy?
This is the Max.
This is the Max. And
but he just hammered.
He just hammered that one 288.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to you in the chat. They're pumping you up in there.
Yeah.
Loving what you're doing. So good job.
Yeah, coming in cold is not easy.
How can
you talk about
how can I
face
see
angle of the driver heads, or any of them closed, open? People are asking about draw and fade bias.
Yeah. How can I see the chat? Is there any way I can see that? Are the questions coming in or no?
Well, they're coming in like crazy, so no.
No, okay. I'll just let you fire, Matt, and hopefully I have
Sure.
the right answers. Yeah, so there's different draw bias in all three of these. So starting with the Max product, this is going to have the most draw bias. So this could be for somebody who's fighting a slice. It's different than, say, the Big Bertha B21, which we called a true slice killer, slice stopper, which was really low spin, had a ton of draw bias. But you also have the adjustability here, right? So you've got 17 grams that you can put in the heel to give you even more draw if you need it, plus the OptiFit hosel that you could put in the draw setting, which makes it a little bit more upright and even more draw bias. So that's going to be the most draw bias of the three. Then you have the Epic Speed, and let me grab that. And what's really interesting here is with the toe patch, and you can see where we would have the toe patch right here. That is where the carbon toe patch would go. So instead of having a weight in the heel, we actually take weight out of the toe, which I think is a really ingenious way of getting more draw bias, but without having to have that weight in the weight box. So we're able to then put more weight in the back of the head here, and that's where you get the more MOI. So the crown actually goes to even further up on the face. So you're saving more weight there, and then you have that toe patch, which is going to give you a little bit more of the draw bias. And then the CG of the Epic Max LS is going to be.
I'm going to pause you for 1 second, and if people want to see that, he was hitting the max, and it's 12 degrees of launch, 2,600 RPMs a spin, 287 distance. It's pretty solid.
156 mile an hour ball speed.
Okay, go back to what you were saying.
Good, yeah, really good numbers there. That you got 12.2 and 2,600. That's a great formula for distance right there.
Yeah.
So just to finish that one out, the Epic Max LS is going to be a lot more neutral bias. Like we said, it is typically for the better player, but you do have the adjustable, the APW in the back. Now it's a 13 gram versus 15, but it can really help with that last third of the flight. So if you're looking for something that does not have as much draw bias, I would gravitate towards the Epic Max LS.
Can you compare Epic Max to B21 like you were kind of doing earlier? It's a slice killer, but it's a little different animal.
It's a total animal, but I'm glad that you asked that question. The Big Bertha, the B21, is what we have kind of talk about unconventional forgiveness. That actually has a forward CG, and so it's very, very low spin. Almost like Sub-Zero type of spin, but with more draw bias and more MOI. So it's really for that player that is fighting, hitting the ball to the right. It kind of has that sort of one purpose in life, and which is slice killer. And I think it does a really good job of that. The Epic Max LS is what we would call kind of a traditional forgiveness. We're talking about 9,000 MOI with the Epic Max. Big head, big shape, stretched back shape, and it has the adjustable perimeter weighting. It's got a little bit higher launch than what you would see with the Big Bertha B21, and it's going to have more spin than the Big Bertha B21 for sure. So it's more of that traditional high MOI, very forgiving type of driver.
During that, Jeremy just hit 291 with the Max LS.
Oh, nice.
And
so his numbers with the Max were outstanding with the Max. It'd be interesting to see with
he
the
flipped
Max
on that one.
LS. Yeah, we can.
Which one are you going to play? I know you said you're testing them all, but you like the speed. You should be in the Max. Are you going to be able to make a decision? Or are you going to go straight to fitting and see what they say?
Well, the way to do it is obviously with the fitters. And I got my man, Jason Felicitas, Jason Jaybird, who helps me out in our indoor fitting studios here. And so we're probably going to be trying those out. The other thing that I've been looking into is this longer driver shaft.
We're doing a test literally today on a 50-inch, a 48-inch, and a 46-inch.
That's awesome. I'll be interested to see how that comes out. But we did some fittings with Maverick before the Epic came out, and there's actually a Fitting Room podcast you can listen to about the longer driver shaft. Myself, Tyler, Nate, and Garrett all tried it out and talking about our results, which I thought was really fascinating. Garrett got us with the exact same setup, but with a longer shaft, and we put the stronger cog on there, the kind of tour hosel, so to speak, that allows you to have 2 degrees down. Because what you tend to see when you get with these longer driver shafts is the launch angle goes way, way up. It's surprising how high you're going to hit, even if you have like a 9-degree driver, how high you hit it with the longer shaft. But I had some pretty good results with it, where actually I picked up about 10 yards. I think it was about 3.5 miles an hour faster.
Nice.
Nate picked up like 12 yards, and Tyler, I hate to say it, but the guy picked up like 15, 16 yards with the longer driver shaft, and he was actually hitting it more accurately. So he kind of got rid of that left miss that Tyler fights a little bit. As you guys know, Tyler, he's swinging at about 120 miles an hour plus, and he fights, once in a while with that hook. The longer driver shaft actually eliminated that for him. So that's pretty cool. And we're going to have some options that are going to be available both from a fitting standpoint and then also from a consumer standpoint, though it's going to allow people to order with the longer driver shaft, and more details on that coming soon.
We have James coming in cold as can be. He hasn't even taken any swings today. He's going to be testing out some hybrids, but I did want to ask one more question about the driver because this is the internet. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you. People are asking about Triple Diamond.
The Triple Diamond, yeah, it's like the TCB. If they can't get it, they want it. And
I would tell people before you jump into wanting the Triple Diamond, check the Max LS because it's kind of based on that, like you said. But will there be a Triple Diamond?
There's definitely a Triple Diamond out there on tour, and we're going to have to see. It's interesting because we just got the numbers from the Abu Dhabi Championship. We haven't gotten the Darrell Survey numbers, but we got the numbers from Abu Dhabi, and we had an incredible number of epics in play. We had 38 new epics in play. Callaway won the driver count, the iron count, the hybrid count, the putter count. I mean, it was an absolute incredible clean sweep there. But it was interesting to see that a lot of the guys, European tour guys, and some of them who play both tours, like Henrik Stenson, we're seeing them play the Epic Speed. The commercial Epic Speed got a lot of love. The LS got a lot of love. And then there were some people playing the Triple Diamond as well. Last week in Hawaii at the Sony, one of our staffers, Bryce Garnett, put in the Max commercial. So you never know what the people are going to play. So I think before we get down the road with releasing any kind of Triple Diamond as a limited edition, we got to see what the guys are playing and what they're getting into. But as I said, what Chip had said with the LS is let's make a driver that the guys are actually going to use out there. And people think there's some secret sauce with the Triple Diamond. There isn't. It really is a similar type of driver, but it might have a little bit straight leading edge, different spin line, a little bit of different spin profile, potentially shape might be a little bit different, but the really small tweaks. It takes longer with the tour models. We have the same CT criteria for our commercial and our tour. So we got 3 options. We feel like that's going to fit a lot of golfers.
So we're hitting the regular Epic right now, I believe, hybrid. And James is going to take a few cuts with that. Which do you prefer, Dave, the regular or the Pro?
I think you meant to say Apex hybrid, not Epic hybrid. Is that right?
Yes, I'm sorry. Apex.
I thought maybe he was doing a comparison test with the Epic from a year back. The reason why we have 2 hybrids with Apex is the previous versions of the Apex hybrids were pretty small. They were almost like pro hybrids, even though we didn't call them pro hybrids. They did extremely well on tour, but they didn't really fit a lot of players who were playing game improvement type of irons or players distance type of irons. So your regular Apex player or your Maverick player wasn't necessarily going into that Apex hybrid. So this time around, we wanted to have an Apex hybrid that would kind of split the difference between the Apex and the DCB, and then we would have a pro hybrid that would really be for that better player. So with the Apex hybrid, we have the new Jailbreak AI velocity blades in there. It has what we call extreme tungsten weighting, so a massive amount of tungsten. And then you're going to have the adjustability in the hosel as well, carbon crown. So a ton of technology, but definitely a bigger shape. And then as you get into the Apex Pro hybrid, much smaller shape, fixed hosel, more of a long iron replacement. It's bendable, kind of a mid-launch, mid-spin. Still has the AI velocity blade. It's not going to be quite as long as the Apex 21. So now we feel like we have hybrids for all the different Apex players.
Another question on the Apex. Do you consider them more distance hybrids or like the Maverick, or would you call them more iron replacements?
Yeah, so the Pro, and I just jumped over to grab these. So this Pro that I'm holding here, you can see much smaller in terms of the shape of it. If I kind of look at the top down, I mean, that's a small hybrid. This thing is the peanut, it's got the fixed hosel. This is the 2 hybrid, so we can go all the way down to a 2 hybrid. So that's a true player's hybrid. And then I've got the Apex 21, so you can just see obviously that this is bigger shape to it. Not as big as the Maverick, but still more of a distance type of hybrid versus the Pro. Try to get both of them in frame.
Yeah, there it is.
There we go. So you can really see the difference there. And then when you look down on this, it's going to have the carbon crown, a little bit more of an iron-like shape, if I can show that, but not quite as squared off as, say, the Maverick. And then you have the adjustable hosel that the Maverick doesn't have. And, of course, you've got the new Jailbreak AI velocity blades. I also think it's one of the best looking hybrids we've made, great looking hybrid. We've got the weight here that we can use for swing weight adjustments. You've got the velocity blades in there as well. So this would be kind of a tweener between the players hybrid and a distance oriented hybrid.
So those asking, James was hitting the Apex first. He's just switched to the Pro. He's coming in cold after sitting basically on the floor for the last 2 hours. But he's coming in, he's hitting some balls.
Can you let the guy warm up?
The sound.
Give J-Man a break there. Let him warm up a little.
Yeah, we don't do that here. Can you talk a little bit further about the tungsten placement and why it's so crucial?
Yeah, so I want to see if I have my break apart. Well, I had all my break aparts ready to run for you. If not, I can just kind of talk through it. But yeah, so when you have the adjustable hosel of the Apex 21, I'm holding that up here. You get a lot of weight that ends up, it's high and it's in the heel, which is not necessarily where you want it for a hybrid for sure. So what we have is this kind of extreme tungsten weighting, which starts in the center back and then goes out to the toe. And that's really to get that center of gravity away from the hosel, to get it really deep, but also really low, which helps with your launch angle, but also helps with your forgiveness as well. And, you're talking about 60, 70 grams of tungsten in that as well. So really, really big amount of tungsten. Now, when you have the Pro hybrid, it has the fixed hosel, so it doesn't have that same issue in terms of the CG placement of the adjustable hosel. So we don't need to use the tungsten. It's also, like we said, more of a player's hybrid, not as distance oriented.
Well, we're going to thank Dave for his time today. We know you guys have a ton more questions. If you post them in the THP forum, we will get them answered for you. And don't forget, we are coming back. We have Luke Williams coming up in a couple hours to talk putters. We have some serious white hot OG. Luke is the OG, so it makes sense.
The OG is back.
And of course, don't forget, we have drinks with Jason Finley tonight, 7 p.m. We're going to have him do some color commentary on a competition, I think. So stay tuned for that. We also have a contest coming later today. And thank you, David, for coming on, answering everybody's questions, and going through this vast lineup.
Yeah, we're really excited about this year and really appreciate the partnership with THP. You guys can always hit me up on Twitter, and a lot of you do. So I know you, but DNevCG out there on Twitter. Hit me up. I love it. Love getting your questions. I've been super swamped with all these launches, but I'm going to try to get in the forums and answer some questions as well around the Apex, Epic, anything you guys want to ask about. But we always appreciate your support, and thanks for having me on, JB, and all the guys
no
in
problem.
the studio as well. Good to see you guys.
Yeah, I want to say thanks again, DNevs, as well. Kind of stuck back in from behind the scenes here. Anyone who's enjoying this, as Josh mentioned, we do have 2 more streams today, along with the showcase continuing into tomorrow. So whatever you're watching on, please subscribe if you want to stick around. Make sure you like this. I hope Nevs isn't too offended if people don't like it. So don't offend D Nevs. He's good people. We'll continue this on this afternoon. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Bye, everybody.